Tunisia 88 helped me to be me. It's hard in Tunisia, in North Africa. The attitude of the administration, the attitude of the authority and people in power.
Friends, it's my pleasure to have with me today Kimball Gallagher, the founder of 88 International, an NGO which runs youth empowerment programs for young musicians and composers in Tunisia, Senegal, Morocco, Myanmar, and beyond. Kimball is also an accomplished Julliard-trained concert pianist who has performed in many distinguished venues in 30 countries across 7 continents. Today, we're going to discuss one of the transformational youth music programs he founded called Tunisia 88, a program that has been positively impacting the lives of many young musicians in Tunisia. Kimball, welcome. It's great to meet you, man.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. Great to meet you.
That's fantastic. I'm really fascinated by your NGO and what you've put together. Tell us about this Tunisia 88 project. I take it it's a 501c3. What is it? What's its mission? How many are on your team? When did it start and how did it start? I know that's a loaded question.
Yeah. No, well, it's called, the NGO is called 88 International. And if I go back a ways, it all started because I didn't have a piano when I graduated Juilliard. I had just graduated. One of my mentors suggested, why don't you ask 88 people to sponsor each one of them a key on the piano?
Really?
And this was an effort to buy a piano. And it was the first time that I really saw music not only as something that was for performance and concerts, but also something that could build community. And that one piano that I bought as a result of this effort at that time became the seed for all the other 88s that came after it. And so 88 International was then founded around 2015. And in a sentence, I would say it's a global nonprofit. We use music to help young people essentially find their voice, build community, and lead their own positive change where they themselves live. And I think part of it for me was, as an individual artist, you can touch a few lives at a time. But if you want to reach to thousands or at a much larger scale and to try to make a lasting change, you really need something more structural, partners, institutional partnerships, and some kind of vision that is, of course, far beyond oneself. And that's really why I built 88 International, really to turn that sort of sense of personal impact and sometimes intimate moments in concerts and things like this into something more of a movement at some scale.
Wonderful. Tell my viewers how this student grassroots movement was born in the years following Tunisia's Arab Spring uprising in 2011. How did this eventually lead to the students approaching and securing music clubs in all 586 public schools in the country?
Yeah, so I had been working in Tunisia from before the revolution and then through the revolution time. And I was watching students, I'm a pianist. I also taught piano, but I also taught songwriting. And in Tunisia, after the revolution, I watched students very often writing their own first song. And we started doing this in groups. It's raw, it's emotional, full of hope at that time, especially. And this gave me the idea, I think we could do something at a much larger scale. And believe it or not, it was the Ministry of Education of Tunisia that there was a minister in 2015 that was saying, I want to see a piano in every school. We have to revive all the cultural clubs. So I made a proposal to this minister. I said, Mr. Minister, we'd like to realize this idea, but the classic way of having music clubs is with the teacher as the director of the club. We wanted to put the teacher as the facilitator, which in Tunisia is a big deal, and let the students lead, student-led clubs. And so students watching other students writing their own songs, this is really how, these one or two particular songs became essentially a spark for what was a national movement. Because with the Ministry of Education wanting to promote this program, we were able to bring in, support and shape our curriculum, our program, our annual program to promote the voice of youth through music and through these after-school music clubs.
Fascinating. So in other words, you approached the Ministry of Education first because it seems like you also partnered with Action Solidarity Development and the European Investment Bank. So did you set this off or did they come to you?
Yeah, I had been teaching, as I mentioned, and working on songwriting with groups and clubs and individuals. And it was a series of conversations that I had with a whole range from students, from their parents who are also teachers in the education system, sort of more highly placed people that were really interested in building civil society and also helping government to expand their own capacities within the Ministry of Education. And once we had the seed of that idea, we want to revive music clubs, after school music clubs, student-led in all the high schools. What do we need to do that? Well, 88 International needs an NGO partner. And we had the NGO partner. That's the organization you mentioned. And then we need the Ministry of Education, and we need also financial support, of course. And so we've had any number of institutional supporters. The European Investment Bank, also the U.S. State Department was involved, the German Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Canadian Foreign Service also was involved. And we also had many private Tunisian supporters through this process.
Right. You mentioned that you were able to garner support from various governments, including Germany, U.S., and Canada.
Yeah.
Do you have a big team behind you, or is it mainly yourself?
I mean, as we built these institutional partners, the team also got bigger. And I would say one of the very interesting things about this program, we find it interesting, and it's part of the sustainability mechanism of the program, if I can say that, is that it's the alumni of the clubs that run the majority of the content of our program now. The old club members who then became university students and beyond, they were trained to give trainings. We give a whole series of trainings. They're trained to do sort of the social media. They're trained to do a lot of the operational tasks. We are in 590 schools or something. We have 78 trainings a year. We're in all the different regions. We have song contests on a national scale. We have event contests because the clubs are also creating their own events. Yeah. So there's just a lot of stuff going on. And we also collect data on all these things because we have to follow and understand what's going on. And all of that stuff that I just mentioned, all of those activities are managed in very large part by a group. We call them the executive alumni, the alumni of this program. And this is a similar model we're building in the other countries, Morocco, Senegal, and the Gambia in particular.
I find this fascinating because it's actually the Tunisian the youth, who are actually driving the engine of this.
Exactly.
So I take it that you mentioned you have organized training. What is that like? Does it go on for weeks, for days, for months? Where is it held? Is it held online? How do you go about training these Tunisians to organize and scale?
Yeah, I mean, I think the strategy is really they're clubs. So the clubs have members, and within those members, they're what we call leaders. These are student leaders. And we train the leaders in, you might call it leadership training, but this is basically like how to have a well-functioning group, how to define within each group, they define for themselves, what are the norms? What are the standards? How do we function? What do we do if somebody's late? What if they're 2 hours late? What if they're late 6 weeks in a row? We manage this. What are the tasks? They're not all musical tasks. Some of them have groups, they have singers, they have guitarists, they have people that play traditional instruments, but there's also those who are good at talking to adults or managing logistics or things like that. 3 times a year, we bring them to special trainings. Those are held regionally, leadership trainings. We also do something we call creativity training, which is essentially songwriting training in groups, how to consolidate a message, because this is how we work on the creativity. What is the message that your group would like to share with your own community or with the world or whatever you want to, however they want to think about it? They need to define their audience as well. Who are we singing for? Who are we talking to? And then what is the melody? What are the harmonies? What are the instruments? How are we going to record it? What's the music video going to be like? All of these types of questions. they deal with. And we essentially have these trainings and then we guide them through the process. That's how it works. They've done hundreds and hundreds of songs all on our YouTube channel. And some of them are on the 88 International channel as well.
Right. I was watching the video and I had seen the chief club coordinator, this gal who is responsible, I take it, for booking and managing the 586 public school concerts. Is that strictly her job, or is it like a whole group that is responsible in coordinating that? Because it's a pretty big job, actually.
Well, there was the first part. One was we visited all the schools. Mm-hmm. So that was run by our whole team. And then another part is the clubs themselves organize events. And so that's held, those are managed by those clubs individually. They direct themselves. It's self-directed. And then the club coordinator does organize some select events. Usually that would be when we have a partner approach us and say, oh, we'd like to do something with the Tunisia 88 club. That's when the club coordinator would step in and say, oh, we have this one particular club in this particular region. Maybe they would be good fit for this particular event. And that could be however many events are going on at that particular time.
So how many student and alumni members are currently in Tunisia 88?
I think in the clubs right now, we have, I would say, around 2,500 members actively, and there's probably around 7,000 alumni over 10 years, 10-year accumulated numbers.
How did you initially go about recruiting the Tunisian members?
The original process was to visit the school and present the program and just invite them into the process, and then it becomes self-perpetuating. Because one of the things that happens in this program, which might shift our discussion just a tiny bit, which is the impact that we see on the members and why this all matters. I always tell these stories, after a concert once, a mother runs up to me and she's got tears in her eyes and she's telling me about her daughter who used to be so shy and kind of withdrawn and self-doubting. And she joined one of these clubs and now she's singing, she's performing. She just has this like light with her because of the club. And the mother is telling us, you gave me my daughter back, this kind of like emotional moments. And that's really the importance of what we're doing. It's about confidence. It's about the community. It's about allowing hope to take root and giving these young people the tools to kind of define their own destiny. So music is the tool for all of these things, but there's all kinds of other skills. We have anecdotes of students' grades improve. They have more friendships that are sincere. They're just doing, their life has a higher quality because they have a higher energy level because they're bringing more energy to everything what they're doing. This is really kind of at the heart of all of it. And then seeing that change happen, those students then, their friends are like, what's going on with you? And then they're like, oh, you got to join this club. And so then they automatically attract people to, it's kind of like a moth to a flame after that. We're not really doing an active recruiting process. It's more like the clubs are responsible for their own sustainability. And if the clubs are doing well, they attract new members and everyone wants to join them and stuff like that. So it's really about seeing how music has this power to just connect people. It sounds like a cliche, but this is what we have happening all around us in this program all the time.
That's awesome. In the video, you mentioned that you've tried this concept in some other countries with you and your team, and for some reason, this concept worked better in Tunisia than previously in other countries. Can you explain why do you think it worked better in Tunisia than in previous attempts in other countries?
Well, actually, Tunisia was really the first country where we did this type of program, the after-school music club concept. So it's worked really well in Tunisia. I think it's because the school system for after-school programs, I guess the simplest way to explain it is it's very teacher-centered, and the students are in a position of reactivity. And so they're just simply waiting to be told what to do. And then when you put the teacher as facilitator on the side and you tell the students, no, it's you that defines what you're going to do. We'll give you the tools. We'll give you some hopefully exciting goals to work towards, but it's really up to you in the end. That's where you unleash this amazing amount of untapped energy. And when you shift from that sort of teacher-centered model to call it a student-centered model, and you ask the students to take charge, that's the change that allows all this energy to be unleashed. And we're finding in the new countries, we've recently, in the past 2 years, we've opened in Senegal, in the Gambia, and Morocco, and we find it's working beautifully there as well. There's this thirst among the youth to participate, to engage, to take leadership, and to stop kind of standing around doing nothing, And then it's finally we're really just giving them sort of like a big permission slip and an invitation, yes, please please show us tell us what you're thinking, put it into music, show us what you think are the priorities in your own community. And it's a very beautiful thing to watch.
Yeah, wonderful. What sort of challenges with the government and other obstacles did Tunisia 88 have to overcome at various points of time to have this project come to fruition?
Yeah, I think the government, we often say the government, and we think like this too, but the government has so many different, let's just say, levels to it. There's the national level, there's the regional authorities, there are school directors themselves, there's teachers, there's parents, there's students. And so generally what we find is that the leaders, the national level, they want to try new things. They want to modernize their education systems. So they like the concept of youth taking charge. They like to improve the environment in the school. And then people who are used to, older and different ways of doing things may resist that. They may not want to give this type of, they may see it as giving too much freedom or being too relaxed or undisciplined, or they might think that the students, they really need to be studying. They can't, waste their time with music. And we do our best to make the argument, it's a positive thing for the students. It improves their soft skills. They're going to do better in school, not worse. Most of the time, you can only study for so many hours. But if you're studying in a sort of negative mindset, those study hours are not very productive anyway. But if you're studying with positive vibes, and some kind of self-esteem, those hours become more productive. So this is how we try to argue the point. But I would say the resistance is really kind of in the middle of the education systems. We partner with the governments. So we would never really start a program unless we can, because we work in public education systems. So we really need that partnership from the government from the beginning. So that hopefully gives us a little bit of credibility when we start to encounter obstacles, because these are not just the obstacles we're encountering, we're kind of encountering them alongside with leadership of the whole education system, so they can try to help us and find ways of navigating.
So you are in close contact with the government officials
yeah.
in order to follow up and to keep good relations. I would think that's paramount to this entire effort.
It's fundamental. I mean, I'll give the example of Morocco. We were proposing the program to them, and they say, well, this is in line with our priorities because we're trying to double the number of students we have in our after-school programs. Very simple goal, but we're, in theory, in our minds, we're like, oh, that's great. We can help the government achieve the goals that they themselves have defined. And so we're not going against the current, we're going with the current, hopefully. So this is what we would look for. I think for 88 International, at this point in time, we probably would not try to do programs in countries where the government said, no, we're not interested. We would do programs in countries where it would say, yes, we really want to enrich after-school activities. We want to give the students a more active participatory role. And then we're like, okay, that seems to align with the type of program we can provide. And of course, we're constantly adapting the details and the nuances of our program to specificities, even regional and school level specificities. There's all kinds of little details that need to be rearranged for that.
Absolutely.
But it's really the fundamental idea that the group needs to be aligned.
So you're looking for the low-hanging fruit all the time in terms of other countries. Like they have to be agreeable from the beginning, otherwise they're not even worth partaking upon.
I think so. Yeah, that's been the case so far.
Yeah.
Just as I've traveled around the world as a musician, this type of program is not very common. So
yeah,
there's a lot of seen through the eyes of 88 International. There's actually quite a lot of low hanging fruit.
Yeah. Are you focusing primarily on countries where there have been insurgencies and uprisings due to the Arab Spring?
Simply put, no. It just sort of happened that way. I mean, let's see, Morocco, Senegal, and the Gambia did not participate in the Arab Spring. It's really only Tunisia, the country that we're working in currently, that had that.
Yeah.
And it's true. The Arab Spring provided sort of an opening, a gigantic opening, huge interest in civil society.
Yeah.
A lot of hope and also willingness to try new things and experiment and things like that. So that was the opening we took.
That's fantastic. You mentioned you want to keep members active in programs in Tunisia 88 and to continue writing songs. So I'm wondering, do the individual creators and composers get to claim and keep ownership of their own copyrights? Or are they like a work for hire where Tunisia 88 takes ownership of the copyright of the original songs they create?
Well, that's such a great question. In Tunisia, in Tunisia in general, the copyright and intellectual property laws are, if they are there, they're rarely used and rarely referred to. So it's all kind of informal. What we tell the clubs is that the clubs must retain ownership, but it's kind of a shared ownership because 88 International, because our whole purpose is to encourage clubs to create these songs and events, and we really honestly need to use the songs and events that they do to share freely and to take clips out of them and show other people what we're doing. So we have kind of a fair use agreement with the clubs. But we definitely encourage the clubs to, keep full ownership of their song.
Gotcha. Yeah. And the students don't mind that they're giving over their ownership to the clubs per se, because it's liberating for them to actually perform these songs that they create, either in collaboration or individually.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're part of this larger family, and they would normally appreciate having their song chosen for like special exposure or something.
Sure.
So it's all kind of, in a sense, it's all part of the same entity, and the success and sustainability of the clubs depends on the clubs, doing things. It all kind of has like a positive feedback loop.
Right. How long did it take you to get 586 clubs on board? I take it you started in 2015. Was it like 2016, 2017, you had achieved all 586 clubs?
No, we did it in stages. We started with a pilot program where we tried to have 3 schools in each of the 24 governorates of Tunisia or regions. And so that was sort of the initial pilot program. And that happened fairly, I would say, reasonably slowly. It took about 3 or 4 years. Mm-hmm. We were taking our time. And then we had a huge acceleration from 2019 through COVID to early 2021, where we went from something like 100 to 500 schools in about a year and a half.
Wow.
Because we visit all the schools, and we had a support from the German government, and we basically quadrupled the speed at which we were creating the clubs. And that's how we got to 500. So it took from 2016 to 2021, early 2021 to create all the clubs. But the majority were created in the last 2 years.
That's amazing.
Workshopping and adapting and figuring things out.
You never did tell me how many people you have on your team right now, because this takes a lot of infrastructure, and I'm just curious.
Yeah, we have people at the 88 international level.
Yeah.
And at that level, we have a team of, let's call it roughly five people. And then at the country level, in Tunisia, we have the Tunisian NGO, the one you mentioned, the French name, and Action and Development.
Yeah.
And they have their people, their kind of members. And we have 2 full-time paid staff in Tunisia and about 60 executive alumni and another 30 what we call regional and local representatives. And those are all volunteers. But the executive alumni are volunteers that are very, very engaged, 10 to 20 hours a week, all the time, fully on board, all hands on deck. So it's about 100 all told with 2 paid staff. And, the program goes through ebbs and flows. There's moments during the year where there's no exams in school and everyone's free and it's like all hands on deck. And there's other times where there's far fewer activities. It's organized throughout the year like that. And then in Morocco and Senegal and Gambia, there's also country team. We have either 1 or 2 people, paid staff there, and we're starting to have alumni. Those are smaller programs. We have about 70 clubs now in Morocco and about 12 alumni. In Gambia, we have about 28 clubs and 9 alumni. Mm-hmm. Senegal, we're moving from 10 to 60 clubs very soon. So it's all kind of at different phases and stages.
Yeah. But you use the same model for all of them.
Roughly speaking, yes.
Gotcha. What is your overall goal with student-centered education by spreading this program through many different school systems throughout many different countries? What do you hope to achieve in the end that will be the most satisfying?
Yeah, I think the most satisfying thing is to see how to experience the connective power of music and also the healing power of music. And when people can come together around a shared purpose, it's really this on repeat.
Have you always been an activist or activist-minded?
No, to me, this is really, I wouldn't describe myself that way. I mean, I suppose it's a form of activism.
Yeah.
For me, it's just a natural extension of finding the potential or the light inside of everyone who's, a student of mine who's interested in music. and then asking myself that question. Well, it's nice. You taught 5 or 10 students. Well, how do we make a program to put this at scale? So it's really just that interest in the impact, and also that belief that anyone can create music.
That's true. That's a very profound concept. What is the revenue model for Tunisia 88? So does all the money that it takes in come exclusively from sponsors, or are there other fundraising mechanisms such as donors, grants, etc.?
That's another wonderful question. So far, it's been 10 years. The vast majority of the funds come from grants from institutions. And we do have some small funds coming in from some private sponsors. This part, this is the question we ask ourselves all the time. What is the future of Tunisia 88? What kind of revenue models? There have been clubs that have given performances and received some kind of, I would say, a small contribution to Tunisia 88. But ultimately, we're a nonprofit, so it's going to usually be donations that we depend on to function. And it's worked for us so far.
Yeah.
And we'll see as things continue. We have to experiment with different models along the way. And since we do teach sort of light entrepreneurial skills, the clubs create their own events. So it's very entrepreneurial. And where are we going to do it? Where's the venue? How do we invite the people? Okay, do we need a sponsor for our t-shirts? And they get sponsors on this sort of smaller scale. And so this is sort of a similar approach we need to use throughout and experimenting. How do we build this at scale? How do we sustain it? We'll have an endowment for 88 International. That's really what the ultimate goal needs to be.
It's really great training because you're not only giving them songwriting training and musical training, you're giving them entrepreneurial training.
Yes.
In the process, because they have to develop these systems to make this all work in harmony, which is
exactly it.
Which is great. That's a fantastic education you cannot get in school. You mentioned that the structure of Tunisia 88 in the video is made of 4 winning clubs. And I want to try to understand that better. You have, for instance, an Arabic choir. You have an orchestra. You have a polyphonic choir. And is there another club, or are these even considered clubs? Or am I mixing apples and oranges here? I think I may be mixing apples and oranges.
No, it's just that each high school has their club, and that's really a club that's student led. So that's sort of one program, you could call it. And then we do have, for example, the group that's touring the US now, that is essentially a project-based choir group. And we recruited them from the alumni because they needed to be over 18 in order to easily travel and stay in host families and work at universities and everything. So this group was selected from the alumni, and it's a project-based group. So the polyphonic choir, the Arabic choir, these are kind of another structure that pulls members from the club, those who are interested in doing it.
So how many musicians do you have on tour of the U.S. right now of those alumni?
Yeah, 26. There's 26 in the choir.
Yeah.
We have one choir director as well. There's also some student choir directors who are also singers in the choir. So yeah, 27 people total.
Great. So I want to get into this tour that you're doing of the U.S.
Yeah, thank you.
That's starting, is it starting in New York City?
Believe it or not, it's starting tonight in Maine at Colby College, and then
really
College tomorrow, and Julliard pre-college. We're visiting some classes at Julliard pre-college on Saturday. Then we'll be at Yale on Sunday. And then on Monday, we have a concert, believe it or not, at the 78th floor of the Empire State Building.
Wow.
And we'll come to Washington Square Park on Tuesday and the Yale Club on Tuesday evening. Well, another 5 or 6 days after that.
So you're doing Washington Square Park in the afternoon and Yale Club in the evening?
12 noon at Washington Square Park, Garibaldi Plaza.
And then what time for the Yale Club?
The Yale Club is in the evening, 7 p.m.
Evening.
Yeah.
Okay. So how many cities are you going to be performing in the U.S. for this tour?
So we're performing mainly in universities. So let's see. I should have the number. Let's see. We're going to Durham, North Carolina, Arlington, Virginia, Silver Spring, Maryland, Princeton, New York City, New Haven, Brunswick, Maine, and Colby College, which is in Waterville, Maine. So that's at least eight cities. But this is the very first time that most of these students are coming to the U.S.
Yeah.
And it's very moving to see. I knew them when they were shy teenagers, and now they're turning into confident artists and leaders. And it's the same spirit that started in the schools back where they were in clubs. But it's really an example of how this work has come alive.
Right. So you're mainly keeping it on the East Coast for this tour.
Yes, it's an East Coast tour, essentially.
Yeah. And then if this goes well, maybe in the future you'll do you'll go to the West Coast as well. Who knows?
Hey, that's a great idea.
Yeah. It sounds really exciting. This type of thing requires a lot of coordination because you have to get visas for these kids or these young musicians, 26 visas. And I know because I just interviewed a gypsy jazz musician who does the Django Agogo Festival. He does it every year for 23 years in Maplewood, New Jersey and New York City. And it cost $3,000, he claimed to me, for a visa for the whole band, which never used to be in place. They changed the rules the last year or so. So there's a lot of coordination. Your team does all of that. It has to do all of that, I presume.
Yeah, and they have to do individual visas. So it's like $200 per person, roughly, times, 27 visas. And then we also have to get, a lot of documentation and fill out all the forms correctly. And we also did a little interview training. It's, we sort of, anything we have to do, we try to make it into a training for them. So, you got to go into the U.S. Embassy, and then the consular officer is going to ask you a series of questions, and hopefully they're in a good mood and they're nice and they're kind of on your side. Yeah. And then you need to answer the basic questions. Why are you going? How long have you known these people? Why are you doing this? Where are you going to stay? Who's paying for the trip? But, you might get somebody who's, maybe they had a bad day and they try to throw you unexpected questions, or they try to destabilize you, and then make sure they're ready. They're all very good in English, so it helps the speaking.
Yeah. And that's your team doing all of this coordination. The 5 people.
And this tour, we've been working on preparing these members for a solid 6-7 months. So we have meetings every Tuesday. We get into the swing of it, and they rehearse also, of course, they've been rehearsing, every week for months now. So.
Right. And you have these club coordinators that are in charge of managing the rehearsal schedule.
In general, the choir tour that we did is really run by 88 International. So there's the choir director and then the choir members themselves. Yeah. Myself. And that's enough to organize their rehearsal schedule. Yeah. Figure out what the priorities should be. The program, by the way, it's rooted in the Tunisian songs written also by the youth in Tunisia. So that's exciting. Tunisian dialect. And then we also have them singing songs from Senegal 88, from Morocco 88, from the Gambia 88. These are all arranged by a Tunisian arranger, Salima Terrace. We also have songs from Myanmar. They're going to sing in 9 languages on this concert. Wow. The Tunisian dialect, but also Wolof from Senegal, the Moroccan dialect of Arabic, English, of course, also Burmese and Chinese. They also have some standard classical music. They're doing a movement from the Fauré Requiem, a movement from Bach's St. Matthew Passion. They're doing an American spiritual, Ezekiel Saw the Wheel. And they're also doing This Is Me from The Greatest Showman. And then they have some like Africana things. Baba Yetu, it's a Swahili song. And a Sufi piece that's also in Tunisian. So it's a range. It's kind of try to be like anchored in songs by Tunisian youth, but then also kind of reaching to the world in a way.
Fabulous. Fun. Really exciting. Who's this guy or this person, Rahi Medeb? And how is he the father of Tunisia 88?
Yes, Rahi Medeb. He is the president of the NGO that is the partner of 88 International. We consider him one of the co-founders of Tunisia 88. He was one of the people who really encouraged me very strongly. He was one of the people who said to me, it's great, Kimball, you come to Tunisia every year, you teach some piano students, you teach them songwriting, but you only taught like 15 people. We need a program for thousands. You got to think of something much bigger than this. And so he also helped me to arrange that meeting with the education minister I mentioned, who wanted to revive the after-school clubs. And this was part of the genesis of the idea.
So this is back in 2015 that you had this conversation with him.
Exactly, yeah, in that period. And in Tunisia, foreign NGOs can really only work with Tunisian partners. You cannot, as a foreign NGO, as a foreign entity, just come in and do whatever you want. You have to have partnerships. So he is a key partner to I would say, facilitate and catalyze and really spread this idea and be a champion. He's an advocate, a strong advocate.
So he is in Action Solidarity Development. He is in that NGO.
Yeah, he's the founder and president of that NGO. I guess it has a French name. I guess he would translate it. I think I would translate it as Solidarity in Action and Development. But the French name, it's a French name, Action et Développement.
Yeah, I know. I put it into Google Translate. How'd you go about getting 88 sponsors on board to finance your previous project? 88 sponsors for 88 keys. That had to be a big job.
That was fun. That was really a series of conversations. This is it was kind of crowdfunding before it became a thing on the internet. It was offline crowdfunding. That was back in 2005, before Kickstarter became kind of a standard thing. Really just talking to people and sharing the idea, asking them what they thought. And then sometimes people contribute their own ideas to it, and you have the same conversation, 1,000 times. And if a few people find it inspiring and start to contribute, that's really how it happened. I did a few fundraising concerts too.
This is a little unrelated, but I have to throw this in. I'm fascinated that you performed in Antarctica for the Chilean research station. I know a woman who was the first woman born in Antarctica.
Oh, wow.
She's an artist, and I wrote an article about her recently in the Village View.
That sounds very
So how'd you get that gig?
Well, a friend of mine, Ming, had challenged me to go to Antarctica because he noticed that in my 88 concert tour, this is before Tunisia 88 started.
Yeah.
I had been to 6 continents, and he's like, you got to go to all continents. Mm-hmm. He said that he had been on a leadership skills training trip in Antarctica. So he kind of oriented me to some of the institutions that work there, and they had gone through Chilean channels. And there is an Antarctic Chilean research center, pretty scientific research. By the way, it's also, I think, on King George Island in the tip of Antarctic Peninsula, there's this Chilean center, and right next to it, there's a Russian center. There's also a Chinese center and a Uruguayan center. And all of these centers are within walking distance of each other, all in Antarctica. And so I learned about this, and there's this Chilean explorer type personality, Alejo Contreras. He recently passed away, but he was the first Chilean and the 25th person ever to actually walk to the South Pole or ski. He did it on skis.
Wow.
So I got linked to him and just oriented in the different institutions, the cultural department and the airline that flies to Antarctica, a small private airline that works also with Chilean government. So I just got to know these guys and proposed to have a concert, and they accepted, and I found a spot in the schedule. And it's a little bit like the space shuttle takeoff. If they find a speck of dust in the wrong place 0.1 seconds before takeoff, the whole thing's canceled. It's kind of like that with Antarctica. They have a plane, it's about to take off, and it's like, oh, the weather's not good. But they wouldn't cancel it, a day in advance. It would be, or they could cancel it a day in advance, but they can also cancel it 5 minutes in advance. And so I had to hang out there for a couple months before it all came together.
You had to prepare for anything because you were flying from Punta Arenas, I think.
Exactly that.
Which is a trek in itself to get there. But I was actually talking about Esperanza, which is the Argentinian Antarctic station. It's
exactly
that place where you perform. That's one of 2 international bases or permitted settlements in Antarctica. Yeah. And the other one is the Argentinian one that I was dealing with.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think Metallica performed there.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I saw it on YouTube.
Oh, I just learned something.
At the Argentinian Antarctic station, but I don't remember seeing the word Esperanza, so I'm not sure if it's...
Esperanza is the name of the station.
Yeah, that must be it. That was a few months before I played there, actually.
My God, that's fascinating.
I felt cool.
I'm a musician myself, so I could relate to all of this. Where can my viewers find out more about Tunisia 88 and 88 International in general? Social media, website, etc.
88 International Music on Instagram, 88international.org on the internet or the website. Those are the 2 best places. We also have a Facebook page, of course.
All right.
So those are the 3 spots. 88 International. Our programs all have their own individual pages on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and Facebook. So you can go to Tunisia 88, contact. A lot of the individual clubs have their own pages too, but the main page is really 88 International.
Right. And once again, how many cities are you performing in the U.S. for this tour?
I think 8 cities.
And that's on the website as well? You have the whole tour schedule?
Yes, one of the featured current events. So we have a lot of things going on right now, but the current event is and you can follow our tour on the Instagram. We have, stories and reels and posts going up all the time. And then you can see the full schedule on the website as well.
Right. And what's the Instagram? I'll actually put it in the description.
Oh, thank you. 88 International Music. The number 88 and the words International Music.
Wonderful. Is there anything else that you'd like to add that we have not covered before we, so to speak, hit it and quit it?
No, I think we've covered it. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kimball,
I really appreciate
for your
it.
time.
Thank you for your time.
And I will see you at Washington Square Park, and definitely I'll see you at the Yale Club on Tuesday.
Great. Yeah, Taiwan is actually the second. So I had my 88 concert tour, and then we have a regional project, Taiwan 88, and there's an orchestra, the Taipei Civic Symphony Orchestra. This is sort of a whole separate podcast, but they came with us to Myanmar Music Festival, where we have a program. They also came to Tunisia. They also came to Lebanon and Turkey, and they recently came to Morocco. And this orchestra has been kind of, I would say, in slow motion for the past 10 years, following these programs around the world, and they inject a huge amount of energy. The student songs for orchestra, and then they play them with us. Look forward to it.
All the best. See you on Tuesday.
Thank you so much. Okay. Take care.
Bye-bye now.